All right, well, it looks like our numbers of participants are stabilizing, so I think let's just kick off this event. Hello, everybody. It's so wonderful to see you all here, see you all virtually. Welcome to the event Intro to Early Career Roles, hosted by Forming the Future, a working group of OrgsinSolidarity. I'd just like to begin by introducing, what this event is, where it came from. It is the first event in a series called Breaking into Peace and Security that is also the first big project to come out of Forming the Future, which is a working group that is basically dedicated to uplifting and informing and inspiring early career aspiring and people who are transitioning into the peace and security sector, especially Black, Indigenous people of color and women of color. This particular event series is meant to bring a slew of insights about entering the sector, everything from getting a general knowledge base about what is out there in terms of job seeking to the nuts and bolts of, say, writing your resume, putting together your CV, and other really important elements that may not get talked about a lot in terms of, say, psychological well-being and mental health, whether that's in regards to, the COVID-19 pandemic, the general stresses that come from early career job seeking, etc. So Intro to Early Career Roles, which is today's event, features 4 amazing early to mid-career panelists, which I will introduce to you in a second. They are KIRSTIE BOSMAN, Molly Hurley, Hasanatu Savage, and DARSHANA BARUAH, who you can all see on screen here. They will today be discussing their early career experiences across different sectors and how they leverage these experiences to thrive in this industry. So let me just let you know a little bit about each of them, and perhaps as I introduce you, you guys could just wave and say hello to our wonderful audience. So KIRSTIE BOSMAN is a researcher at Ridgeway Information, a small company providing consulting to international organizations like the UN and the European Union. This role is her first full-time permanent role in peace and security, which she began in November 2020 after finishing her studies. In this role, KIRSTIE leads migration research, supports a project on gender and disinformation, and leads company engagement with students and universities. She holds a Bachelor in Philosophy, Politics and Economics and a Master's in International Relations from the University of Oxford, where she specialized in studying political violence. She's from New Zealand and the Netherlands and is based in London. Welcome, KIRSTIE.
Hi, welcome. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for having me here, Sarah.
It's so good to have you here as well. Can't wait to hear from you. So next we have Hasanatu Savage. She's a legislative correspondent for Defense, Foreign Affairs, Immigration, and National Security Policy in the US Senate. She previously worked as a program assistant at the Council on Foreign Relations. In this role, she researched and developed the substance of CFR's programming by identifying appropriate topics, speakers, and framing the intellectual structure of events on US foreign policy. During her time as a student at the University of Maryland, she served as an intern in the Office of Management and Budget at the White House through the end of President Barack Obama's administration. She holds a joint degree in Arabic Studies and Government and Politics from the University of Maryland, College Park. Welcome, Hasanatu. It's so good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Amazing. And next we have DARSHANA. DARSHANA BARUAH is an associate fellow with the South Asia program at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, where she leads the Indian Ocean Initiative. Her primary research focuses on maritime security in Asia and the role of the Indian Navy in a new security architecture. So welcome, DARSHANA. It's great to have you.
Very great to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Wonderful. And last but not least, we have Molly Hurley, whose work explores nuclear justice issues and their intersection with art and the use of art to promote progressive foreign policy and social change. She recently relocated to New York City to meet with people and delve deeper into art and anime and visit art museums and write and make art and explore racial and gender justice issues. In less than 2 years, Molly has published with outlets such as Inkstick Media and the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists, spoken at a variety of panels and events, and helped foster the next generation of nuclear activists with Beyond the Bomb, and still also finds time to lie in bed with her dog and start a new anime and manga series despite already being behind in 30 plus others. That is aspirational. Welcome, Molly.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you.
So great to have you here. Can't wait to hear from all of you during the event. Just before we start, 2 quick housekeeping things. The first is that for our attendees, if you would like to ask questions, please use the Q&A function, which you will find at the bottom of the screen of Zoom, to ask any of your questions that we will be addressing at the end of the discussion. And the second thing is that we have a couple of poll questions that will be coming up throughout the event. The first 2 will come, they should have come now or soon to now. So they should be popping up on your screens, and you can just select the information that pertains to you. This is just going to be really useful for, for the moderators and also the panelists, and forming the future for this discussion and also going forward. So we really encourage you to answer these poll questions. This is the first 2, and the rest will come up over the course of the discussion. And with that, I think we can kick it off. Marissa, let's go.
All right, awesome. I'm Marissa, by the way, everyone. I'm a senior program administrator at the Carnegie Endowment and part of the Forming Future group. So to kick us off, our first question for the panelists, and we can go in any order, you guys just jump in. But how did you get your foot in the door in your field?
Shall we pick someone? I'm just going to pick somebody at random.
Yeah, go for it.
Kirstie, why don't you start?
Hi, yeah, I'm happy to go first. So as Sarah mentioned, I've only recently entered this field, so for me it's still quite new. But I guess my first introduction to the field of peace and security was a summer internship that I did in the middle of my master's, where I worked at the Institute for Economics and Peace, which is actually based in Sydney. So I was like living with my family while I did this. And basically all of my work experience before then hadn't had anything to do with peace and security. It was a bunch of other things. And so the way that I like managed to seek out this one was I sort of just made a list of like 20 places that I thought were really cool. I really liked the work they were doing. And I wasn't really able to find a lot of paid positions for people working in the summer. And so I just reached out over email to a lot of places and basically got lucky, I think, with one of them. But I think what really helped was I kind of phrased it as it would be great to kind of meet you and get to know more about your organization. And so it was sort of through after having a conversation with someone, and then they were able to kind of see that I really was really interested and passionate. And after that conversation, they said, we don't have a job, but actually we'd really like to have you here for 2 months because you seem really passionate about this and you actually know some stuff. So I guess one thing I learned there was maybe it's sometimes worth just sort of firing emails into the ether, although that can be quite time consuming and demoralizing if no one replies. But in terms of when I finished my studies, I mean, as I'm assuming a lot of people here are also students in a pandemic, it was not exactly the easiest time to get into this field. I sent out a lot of job applications and got a lot of rejections. And it was the kind of breakthrough moment for me actually happened out of getting a rejection. I was told I didn't have the right skills for the job, specifically language skills. I didn't speak Arabic, and that was kind of a key part of the job. But it was kind of through that and making that connection that I was offered to like help on a separate project with the company that I'm now working for just a week. And they really liked the work that I did. And about a month later, I was offered another position. And so even though it had felt kind of demoralizing to go through so many rejections, one of them actually materialized. But I guess the most helpful thing that I found was having conversations with other women who were in the field. So there was one person I found through someone at university. I asked if they knew anyone who wasn't doing research, but actually doing cool stuff out in the world, working for NGOs. And I, over email, was connected, and she was able to tell me about loads of organizations I hadn't thought about and give some really good advice. And So I would really encourage that kind of like networking, even if it's not to bring connections, but like to build your confidence and to give you some sort of guidance on these are things to look out for. And another woman who I worked with when I did my summer internship, who gave me some really good advice about cover letters, because I hadn't really ever had any coaching. And she was like, stop using big words. Don't say that you know everything about the subject, because I didn't, and it was true. And that was now having been in a position where I've read people's cover letters, and I can tell that they don't really know everything either. But the ones that really stand out are the people who talk about the day-to-day stuff and how they can do those things with examples. And that was something that I think really helped me kind of get my foot in the door, I guess. Yeah, that's it for me.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, cover letters, that's a big one. They're such a pain to write, but they're super important, and good tips are helpful. Okay, let's, Molly, would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah. So let's see. How did I get my foot in the door? So really quickly, I graduated high school, middle of nowhere, Missouri. Had aspirations to pursue an MD PhD program, got into Rice University in Houston, Texas, spent a year studying abroad in China, and realized that life was way more than just like studying. So I turned away from the MD PhD. I was majoring in chemistry, and that's the degree I graduated with, specialization in organic chemistry. Started looking at getting a PhD in chemistry, kind of decided against that, ended up taking the LSAT at one point because I was into law school, not even on my radar anymore. And then, so, you know, this whole twisty, curvy, winding path until I am where I am now, which is still actually has taken another twist just over the last like 3 months. But it was the very last semester I was at Rice. I was trying to figure out what to do. If there are any other fellow seniors out there, I feel you. It's like, it's so great to be so close to done, but it's also so painful because you're like, oh my God, what am I doing next? I don't know. That was me. And that's when I just very fortunately came across this opportunity to apply for this fellowship with a grassroots organization called Beyond the Bomb. And they have this really wonderful fellowship program. It's still going on. We are currently in the middle of going through applications for our next cohort. But you know, check out our website and keep in touch to learn when the next cohort is going to be hiring. And it was literally life-changing. I went into this, I'd done, you know, some advocacy work for like Planned Parenthood, some local campaigns in the past and stuff like that. And the Beyond the Bomb Fellowship is kind of two-pronged. You learn about advocacy and like activism, things along those lines. And you also learn about nuclear weapons. Yeah, let me throw the name of the org in the chat. I'll throw the website in there. But anyways, so I was like, well, I definitely want to learn more about advocacy. I have no idea about nuclear weapons. I don't know anything about nuclear weapons. And that's the beauty of Beyond the Bomb. Like, you don't have to. You don't have to know anything. If you do already, then that's great, but like, you don't have to. And I was fortunate enough to get the fellowship, and it's about a 16-week fellowship. A week like 7 or 8, I was like, this is great. I'm gonna stick with this. And really quickly, I, within like 3 or 4 weeks, threw together this application to apply for what's called the Wagner Fellowship, which allows me to do an independent research project on any topic I want. I chose nuclear weapons. It was meant to be international. I was supposed to go to Japan for this. COVID happened, so I'm not in Japan, I'm in New York right now, but you know, New York's still a lot better than Missouri. So just putting that out there. And yeah, and it's just, yeah, I think something to keep in mind. I really will definitely re-up what was just said. You just like cannot give up. It literally really only does take like one opportunity. And I know it's like turned into kind of a meme, but like that sentence that Lady Gaga said, like in some interview about, she was like talking about how she got her role in like A Star Is Born. She's like, it just takes one person in a room of 100 to say yes. And like very much how it works. And like when it comes to finding your way in any job, in any space, but like the space for sure. And so you just have to meet 100 people, which is so easy. Networking has been the number one thing that has gotten me pretty much everything I've been able to do so far. You have to be shameless, and I'm pretty sure I'm talking to a lot of people my age and everything. It's hard. Like we're so shy when it comes to certain things, and especially when it comes to asking for things that we want or even things that we need. We're like, oh, but do I like really need this? Like, yes, you do. Like, just ask, okay? I think something else that I will say is that everyone I have personally met and networked with, or just like sent a cold email asking for like a 30-minute Zoom meeting just to like talk, very friendly. They're very open to it. The only reason that someone like doesn't like schedule something with me is because their schedule is just like hacked, and they like my email just gets lost in their inbox, in which case don't be afraid to be annoying too, like always follow up. So networking, don't give up, lots of resilience, you'll make it.
Awesome. That's great advice. And I like how you also talked about how just because you think you have a trajectory in your career, it's okay to bounce around and change your mind and like just keep kind of, and all your networks are connected, even if they seem like they're not. So that's awesome. Thank you, Molly. Darshana, would you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks, Marissa. No, it's been great to hear these perspectives. Well, I started in India, and then I was in Australia, I was in Japan, and I just moved to the States a month ago. So I'm not sure how much of my experiences would be applicable within the US system or the environment, but I'm sure some of it would be perhaps similar, because the peace and security studies is just one of those spaces which has been tough to break through, especially for women. And that I have seen actually across the 4 countries that I have now lived and worked in. But most like everyone else, I started as an intern as well back in India. And I took a year off between my undergrad and my master's to do that. And I basically took on an internship at a think tank there, at which point I didn't really understand what think tank was. I mean, in DC and US, there is a full ecosystem around it. In India, they're not necessarily, not even in Japan. Australia to an extent that I found. So I think that was very useful to familiarize myself in terms of what I could do with the degree. Like I knew what my interests were, I knew what I wanted to do or the kind of work I wanted to do. So being in the organization through an internship, it really helped me understand what are the processes, how can, what really is about, what is the purpose, what does it do? Like, is this something that is suited for me? I liked it, and then I applied for my master's. I did my master's from UK, and I stayed on a little bit more, did another internship there, and I went back to India. And even after that, the only thing that was available at that point was an internship. So at this point, this was kind of like my third internship after my master's that I was doing at that point, which was for I think about 2 to 3 months, where they basically look at if you can do it. But again, like I said, I think it might be different in the US. In India, everything is super competitive because just the population, we have a huge amount of people. So even for the slightest, for one job, there are thousands of applications, everybody with different degrees. So it might be different, but just to kind of share. And then from there on, I worked at that organization for 3 years. I went on to become a research assistant and a junior fellow. And then I applied for a lot of fellowships. As I started getting experience, 1 year, 1.5 years into it, I started getting experience, and I started applying to fellowships outside of India. So that's how I was placed at the Australian Parliament for about 7 months after my first kind of job back in India. The other thing that I did, because initially I think we can come back to this later, but I did a lot of kind of managing my time between the administrative work that is required of you at junior levels. And initially it was very frustrating because I thought I had entered the job market for research and to write. And it was very frustrating to be doing a lot of, I think, management and administrative kind of work. But I think there's no way around it really, because it's just the roles are built in such a way that it has to come. You have to do that. I think it is helpful to manage your time. I manage my time in the sense where I would get into work a couple of hours earlier and set that time aside for me to write, so that when the senior staff would come in and they would need the assistance, I could do the paperwork and then maybe do again the later half of the day, because the only way that has really helped me transition from the junior roles is balance between the work of, say, the paperwork of sending a proposal, but also having the research experience of writing it. So that has been really helpful. And then after Australia, I went back to India, did another job for about 3.5 years. Then I was last in Japan for 2 years. I got a grant to write a book, which I'm still continuing. And now I'm in DC as of a month ago. I'm starting a new initiative at Carnegie, which Marissa and I are both at Carnegie. So that's how I got my foot into it through internships.
Wow. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I know it's hard to get out of that cycle of internship, and then get into actually getting paid, which we all want. So that's really useful and valuable. Thank you. And then last but not least, Hasanatu, let's hear about how you leveraged how you were able to get your foot in the door.
Yeah, sure. So as you mentioned in my bio, I went to the University of Maryland, College Park. And so both of my majors, Arabic and government and politics, both you had to have an internship for the programs I was in. So I volunteered on a few campaigns, I think probably when I was a freshman, like political campaigns, which kind of helped me understand, like, okay, like how do people kind of get into these roles. And that was really helpful for finding mentors and people, and just kind of seeing what jobs people who were older than me had, and just that kind of helped me begin to build my network. And so I did several internships in undergrad and lots of volunteering. So I volunteered with the International Rescue Committee, which was a really good way for me to realize, like, okay, this is definitely the field that I want to go into. And through that, I met several people that worked for IRC, also volunteers, and I was able to use my Arabic because I'm like, okay, this is really cool to be able to use my language to connect with others. And so I actually, I guess my senior year, my last internship was at the White House. And then I know like a lot of my friends who are like in the business world, they have their fall internship and then they get their job offers. And it's like, okay, like I have my offer a year in advance, but like everybody who works like in the field of IR and government in general knows that like you don't get a job offer like a year in advance. It's like you find out like 3 weeks ahead. So it was definitely a weird process in terms of applying, because it's like, okay, like I'm done interning, but like you can't really apply to anything in like 6 months before you graduate. So one thing that I really did was just continuing to stay in touch with people that I met, and they were mentors, but they were also just like people that I considered genuine friends. And so I think one really important thing for getting your foot in the door is maintaining those relationships, and not only reaching out to someone just because you need them to do something for you, because obviously it's really important for them to like know what your skills are, and then also like seeing like, oh, you're like genuinely interested in that, in whatever role or direction you're trying to go in, and they'll keep you in mind in terms of like, oh, like there's an opening XYZ. And I actually started my first job out of undergrad on the Hill the day after I graduated. So I mean, I did struggle in terms of applying. Like I applied to several jobs and received, also a lot of places didn't even respond, which it was kind of annoying, but whatever, because everything happens for a reason and it builds character. And so, and I know this is not the question, so I won't go too deep into like what I started off as, but I started off as a staff assistant, and I'm happy to talk more about how I went from an administrative role to a more policy focused role later on in the panel. But that's a quick little runaround summary. So basically internships, volunteering opportunities, and staying in touch with the people that I met as I interned and volunteered, and obviously putting your best work forward, even when you're not getting paid, because the skills that you're showing that you have will people won't go unnoticed, and people who see that you're working really hard and possess XYZ skills will keep you in mind for the actual post-grad, ideally paid internships, or rather paid positions that are permanent.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Hasanatu, and all of you for sharing your insights about how you got your foot in the door. I'm actually really glad as well that you mentioned, Hasanatu, which role you started in and how you transitioned further, and for everyone for mentioning all of the different sort of avenues you passed through, because I'd really like to know more about some of the early career roles in your industries, in your particular industries, and especially how anybody who's looking to get one of these positions can identify the kinds of experiences and skills that not just that they could learn there, but that they can also prepare in advance of application, especially because it's so hard to navigate lots of these early career roles that say, you know, they want you to have like 100 years of experience and like 12 PhDs. So, you know, if we maybe can go in the same order, just because this is such a broad question, I definitely appreciate if you guys could keep your answers fairly compact as well. But yeah. Let's go back to Kirstie for this one then.
Thanks, Sarah. Yeah, it's really great also just to hear from the other panelists so much of what you were saying. I was like, yep, these are all such good points. In terms of, I guess, so if I was to describe the industry I'm in, I guess it's more on like businesses rather than policy government stuff. And at least for me, I started as a research assistant on the summer internship that I spoke about. And I know that a lot of research assistant kind of positions in this field are often very administrative. So you're kind of just doing quite boring things. You're looking at PDFs and highlighting things and sending things and organizing. I was quite fortunate to be doing more research stuff. I mean, I was given tasks to do, write a page on this, write a page on that. And it was sort of supporting someone who was a researcher. And my current role right now, my job title is a researcher, and that is primarily what I do. But I also have a range of other responsibilities. I think I would say that kind of reflects the fact that I work for quite a small organization. I know that if you work for a big organization, like I, for example, lead our company's outreach and like research assistant programs. I manage like several research assistants. I like kind of lead a lot of our migration research, and also deal with clients and that kind of thing. I would say that maybe isn't that level of responsibility is something I have now. I don't know if you would get the same in bigger organizations. Yeah, I guess one thing I would say that a misconception I had before entering is kind of what you were saying about having 5 PhDs and everything. The job I have now is not something I would have applied to when I finished my master's even, because I wouldn't have maybe thought I was qualified enough. I didn't know anything about migration. I'd never managed people before. But actually it was something I had the skills to do, and that didn't matter. And so in some ways I would say that that could be an entry-level thing. It's just a matter of being willing to learn that kind of stuff. And in terms of where you would progress from that, I mean, again, it differs on organizations. So like I'm a researcher now, maybe I would be like an analyst in a different organization. And you might then progress to be like a senior researcher or fellow or something like this. And I guess at least that is something I'm looking to do. And in terms of how to get there, for me at least, I'm thinking like at least like experience managing a project and leading initiatives, building expertise in a certain field, and that kind of stuff just takes time. And maybe that involves doing time in different organizations. But yeah, I guess kind of, at least from my experience, a lot of it was very desk-based research, and then also involving managing people and things like that. And I would advise like don't be afraid of doing those kind of things, especially if it's something you don't know a huge amount about. Like, you might need to in the future, but that's something you can always build. And at the end of the day, if you're smart and you work hard, a lot of things you can figure out as you go. Yeah, I guess that's kind of like what I have to say. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you, Kirstie. I really like what you highlighted about being able to draw those skills from even a desk-based or an administrative job. You can really apply them to a broad range of things. You just have to be, I guess, creative and committed to it. Molly, let's hear from you.
Yeah, let's hear. So yeah, I guess I'm slightly more in the advocacy space, so I can talk about some of the entry-level stuff there. I would say that in a very, like, for the entire, like, just general, like, advocacy space, if you are not picky about, like, what specific kind of issue area you're working on, lots and lots of opportunities to get internships, fellowships. I see this kind of stuff all the time, with, like, Planned Parenthood, with, like, your local representatives, you know, lots of stuff in Washington. I think the unfortunate thing is that it is kind of hard to find paid opportunities sometimes. And even if it is paid, the pay might not be that great. So there's definitely an economic barrier. And that's something that I think, generally speaking, people within the space have been trying to address and push towards for more, like, sort of like equity in terms of economic barriers to entering the advocacy space and everything. Let me see here. Internships and fellowships tend to be more like while you're kind of like in school. If you're about to graduate and you're looking for like a job, like entry level, like full-on jobs, field organizers, digital organizers, advisors, things along those lines. I see stuff for that a fair amount, actually. Let me see here. I mean, I've kind of gone about, I mean, everyone will kind of go about entering the space in their own semi-unique way. For me, personally speaking, though, the way I've kind of like really gotten into the field is through just a variety of fellowships. So the Beyond the Bomb Fellowship and then the Wagner Fellowship. And I think what's nice about my fellowship in particular is that it allows me to do this really nice merging of like advocacy work and research work. So I'm not like just working on campaigns, and I'm not just like reading news clippings and research papers. It's kind of a mix of both. And I alluded earlier that there was kind of this like other big twist in my kind of path forward just over the last 3 months, and that has been towards artistic things. I've been drawing my entire life, like before I could tie my shoes or read or anything. But it was the whole like artistic field was something that I never took very seriously, and it is definitely one of my, I don't want to use a word as strong as regret, but we could call it a regret, that I never really gave my creative side a real fighting chance at being more than just a hobby, I guess. And so now I have like this whole other pivot where I'm like doing research and I'm working on like campaigns with Beyond the Bomb, but I'm also like making artwork and using that as a way to bolster my research and my advocacy and everything. So I think if anything, the path I have ended up forging for myself so far, and who knows where it's going to go in the next, like even just a single year, much less like 5 or 10 years, is that with enough tenacity, which is definitely something I've had to do, you can absolutely just like forge a completely original path forward too, which is like pretty much what I've done. I think the only other person that I know personally that has had any kind of path similar to mine is like lovely Umayam, who, if anyone wants to speak to her, let me help you network, guys. Do not be afraid to to reach out to me. I'll drop my contact info in the chat. I will help you network as much as you want, I promise, because so many people have helped me. And I think it's just, if anything, the key for me to finding and getting opportunities is like everything everyone has said, like, don't give up. You're probably definitely going to get like a lot of rejections. Do not feel bad about that. That is literally everyone's experience. And I'm not saying that as a way to like invalidate the like how much it sucks when it's it, but like you will get there. So be tenacious, don't give up, and be very, very just like be very annoying and shameless when it comes to like reaching out to people, and just like scour the internet. Honestly, looking and finding and applying for jobs is a full-time job. It is ridiculous. And so just like drink a lot of coffee, you got this. And I just really want to go back to being shameless, like reach out to anyone and everyone and get them to have just like one conversation with you. You will learn stuff from them.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And for bringing up Lovely. I can confirm that she's amazing and super open to people who just reach out to her. And it's really important that you highlighted the multidisciplinary way of approaching the field and bringing your passions into it and just being tenacious. So thank you, Molly. Darshana, what about you?
I think in the think tank and the policy space, there are a few roles, I think, at the entry level that goes within 1 to 4, I think, different levels. The job that I learned the most, I would say, would be as a research assistant, because that was a time that I was, so I think it's really helpful if you could find someone who works closest to the topic that you are interested in, or at least within the same field, so that, you know, even when you're assisting them with their work, that's the part of the time carved out where you can actually put in some of your own research interests, right? The other way that has really helped is to actually go out of the entry-level fields. I think you also have to like publish, you have to work, and it's very difficult to get published, you know, your early days in publications. That's a whole, I mean, academia is a whole different beast. But even I think on platforms, one thing that has helped is, you know, when you do kind of research assistance for like people who are in a similar field, you're interested in that. So I think it ends up you taking initiative and finding interesting facts or aspects of the question that was not given to you. I also did co-author a lot with kind of my bosses in my early days. That was very helpful because, you know, then you get introduced to the system, to the whole process of, you know, the editorial process, and also your introduction to different, I guess, people in the field through your mentors or your bosses who you're working with. So I actually found the research assistant job was a steep learning curve, which I had to manage both the kind of, you know, doing logistics for projects and events, but also the research side of it. I have gone through many ranks. Like I've gone through like, I think, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 in the last 8 years itself. I think it depends. Sometimes also I would say don't get hung up on the title. Don't get hung up on it's very hard to say. I mean, it's very hard to accept it. But I think just kind of, you know, figuring out what is the best you could do. Taking initiatives as well, just even if it is like something that is not a newsletter, or, you know, coming up with a proposal. That, not saying, again, I think to echo what Molly said, don't be like, you know, don't let rejection or the lack of kind of initiative in your initiative reflect your level, you know, quality of work or your own standing in the place, because a lot of the time there's a lot of things that goes behind any new project, initiative, or even hiring. It includes funding. It includes, you know, it includes kind of like the larger vision of the organization. It might just not be a right fit. It not necessarily mean that, you know, it's reflective of your. But I think I would really reiterate what everyone else is saying. Just do kind of, you know, do the stuff that that is of interest to you. The one thing that I think has helped me was when I started out, my area of research was not sought after research topic at all. At that point, it was something else. And I was in fact encouraged a lot to, I think, work on something that was more in demand at that point in time. But I did stick to what was of interest to me. And today it is, it has a lot of kind of other opportunities. And I think if you're going to be working really hard in issues and getting paid less, you might as well do it a space that is of interest and you enjoy doing it, because otherwise it's going to get even harder to sustain that interest or, show up to work.
Yeah, 100% agree about the importance of loving what you do and also about having that like professional and mental flexibility in your approach to your work. Hasanatu, let's hear from you as well.
Yeah, so echoing a lot of what most people said. So for me, I started on the Hill as a staff assistant, and then I went to a think tank as a program assistant. And I think that, so both of those are like pretty entry level jobs to get into like the foreign policy space in general if you're in DC. And I think that it's really important to make the most out of the positions. Although they're administrative, you could just show up and answer the phones and reply to emails or do whatever the administrative side is. But if you are interested in going more into the meat of the policy space and like being a part of like the decision making XYZ, I think it's really valuable to put in extra time to do things that are outside of your job title. So if there's someone in your office on your team that has a position that you maybe could help support whatever role they're in. I know a lot of people often have a lot on their plate. So even you just offering to do a little bit of extra background research, XYZ, or just like sitting in for a meeting and briefing and providing them a readout or something like that is extremely valuable. And it helps you show that like you're capable of doing more than just the administrative role. And obviously there's nothing wrong with being in an administrative role if that's what you're looking for. But if you're looking to go more into the policy space, then I just really advise like using your free time, which means like getting to work an hour earlier and like putting in the extra time and just grabbing a coffee with people who are in the office that you're in and just asking them like, how did you get to where you are, and like how can I use this position to get me to the next level, and those are things that I've done that have helped me get to where I am at now.
Great, thank you, Hasanatu. Yeah, that's awesome, and I think you make a really good point of putting out like your admin roles. I mean, sometimes they're not the most fun, but they are an important leveraging point to go on further in your career, and they're a great way to get your foot in the door as well. So thank you. All right, so I think people have been saying in the chat to ask any questions using the Q&A function. This is your time to ask any questions on how to get jobs, what you're curious about. So please feel free to ask them in the Q&A function. I see Jada Bass. She's asking, most of you all have master's degree. Would you recommend that for someone who is changing careers? Anyone want to take a stab at that? Sure, yeah. Molly, yeah, and kind of keep the answers short so that you each can have a chance to answer.
Great. Yes, I have also been exploring I actually don't have a master's. It's something I've been looking into and exploring. I've had so many informational interviews with people asking, should I get a master's? And if I do, what should it be in? And I've gotten a huge variety of advice, which means that there is obviously a variety of opinions and options. And I think what's important to keep in mind is what are you changing from and to? And I think something else, I think the best advice that I would pick out of what I've been told is that there is zero rush in getting a master's. There are lots of people who go straight from undergrad to master's, totally fine. I do think there is something to gain by taking a break from school, working, doing, or like going abroad, or I don't know, doing whatever it is you want for a few years, and then you reassess whether or not a master's is really something that you want/need. I think in terms of the policy space, there's definitely this kind of impression that like you quote unquote need a master's to like quote unquote make it and stuff. And I would say that I have actually been able to meet quite a few people that I would consider have made it and they do not have a master's. That is to say, there are lots of jobs out there that are like, this is an entry-level position, but you need a master's. And it's like, well, that's not very entry, like relatively speaking. And when I talk to some like later / late mid-career people, I think that all of us have very different ideas of what it means to be like early career. There's like early career to like the old people, the people who've already made it. And then there's like early career to us. And like our like concept of early career to the old people is like you're like pre-early career, which is like, okay. So anyways, so I don't think a master's is necessary. Definitely think about what field you're moving from into. At the end of the day, I think the most important reason, there are two really important reasons why you should or should not get a master's. One is that you want to. Grad school is like not all that great. You know, I do look back to my days of undergrad at Rice very, very fondly. At the same time, there was a lot of suffering involved, like academically, you know, like if I'm going to be honest, like it was hard. And master's and PhD programs are going to be kind of similar. So you like, grad degrees are something that like you have to want, otherwise like it's 1-2 years for masters, like maybe up to like 6 or 7 years if it's a PhD of just like, why am I doing this is what you're going to think to yourself every single day. And like, is that worth it? So you have to want it. And second of all, another important reason to get a master's is that sometimes it is a really good like stepping stone into the next sort of like phase of your career. I would say if you are just about to graduate undergrad, you're already transitioning to a new phase in your life / career. You do not necessarily need a master's yet. If you already have one lined up, that's fine. If you want to do it, that's fine. Like there's no wrong or right way to do this. But like TLDR is that you do not need a master's degree. You get a master's or a PhD if you want a master's degree. And then choosing a program is like a whole other conversation, and definitely just like reach out to any one of us on the panel, I would say one-on-one for like a more detailed info interview on the process of finding a good degree program.
All right, awesome. Thank you. And I see a bunch of you are writing some questions in the chat. So panelists, feel free to answer them because I don't think we'll be able to get to all of them. And just type the answer to their questions. And then Darshana, I think you had something to add to this question too, right? Or no?
No, it's okay. I mean, we're short on time, so we can take other questions if someone wants to take it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I think our next one was, what advice would you have regarding which skills to focus on in this field and which resources were helpful to you? Again, anyone would like to take a stab at it, and then try to keep your answer to like kind of short, just in case other people have something else, something they want to add. Yeah, Kirstie.
I would say 2 skills. I'll keep it really brief. I think 2 skills that I think have been really important helping me get places and things I want to work on moving forward is firstly languages. I didn't realize before I kind of started applying for lots of jobs and getting rejections from jobs how important having a language skill set is, especially if you want to be working in various countries and regions. I think it can open up the pool of stuff that you can apply to a lot. And it might be the case that, you know, you might get a job, not because you know loads about, like, let's say, you know, a lot about terrorism or, you know, a lot about organized crime, but it might be because you speak Spanish or Portuguese or like Wolof or something like that. And that can be like a really great way to get into a job or a field, having a special, like another language or multiple languages. And I think that if something that I've realized wanting to really work in IR type stuff, like that is something you definitely need, I think. You don't absolutely have to have a lot of languages, but it is something that's really valuable. And the second thing I would say is writing skills, because like, as you know, you can be great at researching and you can know a lot of stuff, but I think being able to communicate it clearly and having some kind of evidence of that, like maybe you helped write a brief for someone, maybe you did a campaign and you wrote like a bunch of posters, or you did like a bunch of social media stuff. I think if you're applying to things or thinking about what skills you want to work on, being able to have an example of like, this is some writing that I did that was like, I think that's like a really, really important skill to have. Yeah, and languages, yeah.
I'm happy to jump in, and I agree with everything Kirstie just said. And I also, in addition to writing, I think it's really important to be able to read really dense, long text in a quick amount of time and being able to retain that information, because there are a lot of times where you have a quick turnaround and you have a lot of information that you need to take in. And so just being able to have that skill of being able to read and comprehend something in a short period of time, I think is extremely valuable. And then secondly, just being flexible and open to different things, and just being flexible to always say yes, even if it seems like something that is not completely connected to what you want to do, I think is also a very valuable skill, and doing it with a good attitude and putting your all into it, I think is very helpful. And it's something that has taken me a long way in my field.
I'll jump in on the question. I just saw that there's a lot of questions on the networking aspect, so I thought I'll just quickly respond to that. I don't think so it's necessary for you to know someone very well in the field or that you must know, but I think through your work, whether it's through internship, whether it's through your professors that you had, or in whatever level you're in, I think you can build your own networks. One of the ways I did it through internship was, I supported a lot of kind of logistical work for events, right? So there were really important people flying in whose logistics I was handling. So I would just request for a time to speak to them after the event was done, or when they're in the city, or people are usually helpful. They will speak to you. So I think you can build your own network. I didn't know anybody in the field before I came into it, and I don't think so it's absolutely necessary. It is difficult, that is true, but I don't think so that should be something that you need to focus on just building the network. I think the network bit will come with your work. But I think what everyone was just is saying, that, if you're willing to put in the work, if you're understanding the subject, you are passionate about it, you're interested about it, I think you can frame your questions. You will find the people to talk to them. You're not going to get all your answers questioned in one meeting or even two. I think it does take time, and it'll have to be like slowly built on that. But yeah, I don't think so network is absolutely important. But also on the question on masters, I think it depends on what field you want to go in. It will depend on the kind of jobs you want to do, the kind of work you want to do, and also where you want to do. I think, again, from having worked in the policy space in 4 different countries, I think it's very different in terms of what city, where you're doing it, because what will measure is the level of competition and the kind of applications that are coming in for the same job. At least in the think tank space, in the research think tank space, I think masters is an essential step to grow from an entry-level position. But again, it depends on, you can be a think tank and you can do other aspects of it. So it really depends on what line you want to pursue.
Really quickly, I'd like to jump in on a few really quick points. One is, I know that we're encouraging you, say yes if you can, like do this, do that, or whatever. Something else that I really want us to keep in mind is that, as from what I can tell, all of us on this panel are women, and from what I can tell, and I know, not to assume gender, but from what I can tell on names from people in this webinar, it's a lot of women in here. And because we're all women, I all want us to be very conscious that, our time is valuable, okay? We should not feel obligated to have to say, yes, and always have this super can-do positive attitude. We have to be this, perfect, supreme human womanly being and stuff like that. You're allowed to have bad days. You're allowed to take, a time, a self-care day or something like that. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to be a human. Anything you see men doing, you should be allowed to do in the field too. Don't hold yourself to a standard that's too high, like be realistic, treat yourself like a regular human being, the way you would want your friends to treat themselves in a work environment. Like make sure you're treating yourself like that too. And on the networking thing, it's hard at first, but only because it's scary. Once you get going, it's actually relatively easy, I would say. I am the one, really quickly going through questions, I am the one with a STEM degree. I graduated with a degree in chemistry, did specialize in organic synthesis. I would say, I don't know how much time I'm supposed to have left, but why don't you email me or DM me or something and let's talk STEM. What else is it? I think, but my main point that I just really wanted to highlight is that I was watching a YouTube video, and one time this person was like, it's interesting how easily we can say every single day, maybe every single second, every time we see this person or a pet or something like that, like a friend, you just look at them and you're like, God, I love you so much. Like you deserve so much happiness, and you deserve this and this and this. And when you see your friend or a family member going through a hard time, you're like, girl, quit that job, dump that man, we can think so clearly and positively and want such good things for other people in our lives, but then when we turn inwards, we're like, nope, I gotta stick with this. I don't deserve the same level of luxury, comfort, happiness that my dog does. That just doesn't make sense. And it's something that I thought about a lot since I heard this. And it's something that I'm definitely still working on myself to kind of incorporate how I treat myself, but just don't overburden yourself.
Yeah, that's so apt and so well said. I think that we are basically at time right now, so I would love to have just one wrap up sentence from each one of you, just to say, what do you wish you knew when you started out that you know now, just in one thing?
And maybe Hasanatu can start us off, because I know she has to hop off here soon. So maybe just a quick little wrap up, and we can say thank you for your time and providing so much advice to us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you all for having me. And I guess one piece of advice that I have is just, I guess, not being afraid of opportunities that you might think that are out of the box. And sometimes people who are your colleagues and your friends see more potential in you than you see for yourself. And sometimes you might feel imposter syndrome and might think that certain things are out of your league, and just remembering to realize that you're capable of so much, and that we're all in this field. And whenever you're confused or you're nervous about your trajectory, reaching out to someone will never hurt. People love to speak about their careers and their pathway. And if you see someone who's doing work that you're interested in, going that direction and speaking with them, and again, just believing in yourself, because you're capable of way more than you imagine. So yeah, thank you all for having me.
Thank you so much, Hasanatu. I really appreciate everything that you shared with us today. Darshana, something to wrap us up?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much. This is really great, and it was great to hear everyone else's kind of views and perspectives on this as well. Not a whole lot to add, but just to reiterate what others have also said. Don't let rejection. I mean, it is going to come. It's going to come from all aspects, in all forms. I think that's just the system. It also is reflective of the job market. It's very unfortunate at times, but I think. I mean, just I keep pursuing what you want to do, and like what others have said, don't be afraid of opportunities. And if you feel something's out of your league, well, most people will tell you it is out of your league. It's because it's such a small space, peace and security, and it's a very also male-dominated place. So it will be very, very hard. You will be told that it's out of your league all the time. But if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But you gotta give it a shot. So keep giving that. Keep reaching out and keep applying for things. So yeah, good luck, and good luck with whoever is all of you listening in and trying and to navigate this. We've all done it. It's hard. It's not easy at any level. But yeah, good luck with everything. Thanks for having me here.
Oh,
Sorry.
I muted myself. Thanks so much for being here and for sharing with us, Darshana. Kirstie.
Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, I think thank you all for speaking. I feel like I've already learned a lot as well, just from, we're all at different levels as well. So it's been a pleasure to be part of this and also learn from all of you. I guess if I had to give 2 pieces of advice, well, the main one is don't be afraid. I mean, imposter syndrome is something I feel pretty much every day at work still. And, I don't know if that's ever going to go away, but the main thing is like to be brave and to like Molly was saying, don't be afraid to pester people. And like I managed to get where I am largely because of women supporting women. Like there were women who I reached out to who knew exactly what it was like to be in my position, and they remembered that and they helped me out. And I try to do that to people as well. And like at the end of the day, everyone is just a person who's also kind of been where you are, and don't be afraid to reach out because people will really help you. And also don't be afraid to try things that might seem out the box, like other people have already mentioned. You might not know what you want to do, and that's okay. You maybe, as long as it's not something you don't want to do, why not give it a shot? That's kind of the way I've tried to approach things, at least. And I've found out I'm really interested in refugee studies. I had no idea what that was until about 5 months ago. So I think don't be afraid, even though obviously that's really hard to do sometimes. And good luck to everyone, especially all the students here. I really feel your pain, and you're all doing an amazing job. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you so much for sharing, Kirstie, and 100% agree with everything you said. Molly.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much to the other panelists. This is great. I one up every single thing every other woman has said on this panel so far. And especially the whole like women uplifting other women, like, yes, okay. It looks like the biggest thing people are struggling with is networking. And like I said, it's scary at first. That's what makes it so hard. But once you get going, it's actually pretty easy. That's my experience anyways. So you just have to get started. Email every single one of us on this panel. Like, please, we want you to email us. And I would say people in general in the space, very open to giving advice, just like talking through like their own personal career path that can maybe help inform what you want your career path to look like, stuff like that. Whether they're male, female, gender nonconforming, like whatever, any race, everyone's very, very helpful and welcoming, sorry. But women especially very open to helping other women. We all know the pain that comes with being a woman and trying to make room for yourself in a very male dominated space and everything. And definitely reach out to me if you want to talk about like creating a sort of hybrid career path. If you're the kind of person who like, I don't want to be in, no offense, but like a boring like international relations master's program at MIS, like me neither. So let's talk what we can do that might be a more creative future for you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Molly. Well, that concludes our panel. I want to say a massive, massive thank you to all of our speakers here today, Kirstie, Molly, Darshana, and HASSANATU, who has already left us. You guys have been so inspirational, sharing your insights, and I think giving all of us a lot of different ideas of where to go from here. I also want to say a massive thank you to my co-moderator, Marissa, also to Forming the Future's co-chair, Katie, who has been on this call as well. I realized that I had not introduced myself at the start of this call, so I'm also a co-chair of Forming the Future. And please feel free to reach out to either Katie or myself at any point. She has already dropped our contacts into the chat. And you can engage with Forming the Future if you're interested in this and if you enjoyed this event. And you can keep up with basically everything that we are doing. I also did want to say thank you to Maher, our tech wizard, who's been wearing so many hats this evening. Thank you for everything. And also to all the other members of the Forming the Future working group who worked on everything from correspondence to concept to promo. Thank you everybody for making this happen. Our next event in the Breaking into Peace and Security series will be happening in June. So definitely keep your eyes peeled. And as I said, contact me and Katie if you want to get involved in Forming the Future. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. We hope it's been helpful. We hope it's been insightful, and we hope it's been inspiring. Thanks a bunch.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care. Stay safe.